Oscar.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of 1 Minute Breakdowns, where we break down this week's UFC card, each fight in a minute or two, sometimes 2 minutes or less, with our guest host today, Daniel Levy from Half the Battle. Dan, how are you doing today?
Good, man. I don't know if y'all just heard me call my dog Oscar, but because it was on mute during the countdown, so I thought it was gonna be on mute right after that. So I was like, Oscar, like my boy's playing tricks. But man, I'm feeling fucking great. I mean, Ilia Topuria versus Emmett. I mean, come on now. This card is stacked. This is one of the better fight nights. And yeah, man. We get to do it in a minute or less. Y'all used to me talking for hours, so now I get to get down to it fast.
Exactly. And for those that don't know, I will be meeting up with my boy Dan this weekend at the PFL show in Atlanta, and hopefully we'll be able to watch the UFC fights on Saturday too. So looking forward to that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and start off. We have Cody Brundage going up against Cedric Dumas. Cody Brundage is the favorite in this matchup, closer to around a -180 favorite. He's going to be at a 2-inch height disadvantage, and he's going to be at a 7-inch reach disadvantage. And Dan, do us the honors.
All right. So basically, the way I feel about this fight is last time people concluded Dumas was a -200 favorite over Frem, who is way tougher than Cody Brundage. Frem's got that dog in him. Point in case, that Trayshawn Gore fight, that guillotine, none of us would have held it against him if he tapped. He did not tap. He went to sleep. Frem went 3 rounds with Fluffy Hernandez. And I mean, losing to a guy like Frem isn't a big deal. But now Brundage is -200 over him. I mean, dude, Brundage, like even the fights he wins, he pulls out of his ass, getting destroyed by Dalcha, gets a miracle guillotine. The Trayshawn fight looked like Trayshawn was coming back, hits him with a lucky shot. And then every other fight, when Brundage's takedown game doesn't work, he quits. So I think this is Dumas or pass, and I'm going to go with Dumas.
All right. And then, sorry to upset everyone who's been waiting for a breakdown from me on this fight. I cannot speak on this fight whatsoever because I'm helping one of the fighters in camp. So I'm just going to lay it short and simple. I think there's going to be violence involved, and that's as much as I could say. But moving on, this is the only fight, by the way, that I'm helping a fighter on in the UFC, at least. But moving on, we have Tatsuro Taira going up against Clayton Rodriguez, 2 phenoms. We have Tatsuro Taira, who's going to have the 3-inch reach advantage and is going to have the 1-inch height advantage. And man, Rodriguez versus Vergara was a very bad look for Clayton, getting taken down and also reversed by a smaller guy in Vergara. I think Clayton is a very explosive striker and super athletic, wide variety of weapons. But the grappling is where I have some questions still, and that's where Taira excels. I think Taira's grappling is probably going to prove to be a little bit too much here in this fight. And I think when he gets the first takedown, he might not finish in the first or the second, but as these takedowns rack up, I think Taira will ultimately look to hunt the submission and probably a rear naked choke. So I'm going to have to take Taira here. Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, I was very impressed with Taira when I went back and watched the tape, because obviously when I saw the big dog odds on Clayton, it stood out. I mean, the guy is very talented. He's an explosive striker. He's going to go for it. He's going to try to kill Taira. So on that merit, at least if you're taking the shot on Clayton, at least he's going to go for it. I just think Taira presents a different threat on the mat. Even when he gets to bad spots, he shows a lot of maturity. He's probably the best Japanese prospect we've ever seen. Yeah, definitely better than Japanese Connor. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Tatsuro Taira.
Absolutely. Japanese Connor proved to be maybe a little bit too early, but hopefully a favorable matchup next time out. Huh?
Next up, we have Jamal. Already got his favorable matchup, and
he dropped the ball big time. Yeah. Next up, we have Jamal Emmers going up against Jenkins. Jamal Emmers being 3 inches taller and will also have a 6-inch reach advantage in this spot. Dan, lead us away.
Jack Jenkins, super talented prospect from down under, a guy that is known for his leg kicking game to the point where on the regional scene, he sent multiple people to the hospital with broken legs. And the guys that didn't get broken legs still got sent to the hospital. And I feel like even on Contender Series and his UFC debut, he hasn't shown what he's fully capable of. So if if you see that plus 200, I can see why you'd be tempted. He's a good prospect. It's just on the other side, you got Emmers, who's much more experienced. And when Emmers puts it together, he looks like a top 15 guy. It's just Emmers is a hot and cold fighter. Sometimes he shows up and sometimes he doesn't. But on Emmers' best day, he wins this fight. And on his worst day, look out for a stunt. So if you got in on the early action on Emmers, you did the right, you were on the right side. But now it's a dog or pass situation.
Absolutely. I mean, I think personally Jenkins is facing a tall task here. I think Emmers is better than Jenkins almost everywhere this fight goes, except for the leg kicks. I mean, those leg kicks from Jack Jenkins are just devastating. If you let them rack up, obviously he's going to take you out. I think the striking is going to be in favor of Emmers here, especially with the longer frame, which pose a big threat to Jenkins. And also in the wrestling, the grappling, I think this guy Emmers has a lot of tools to be a really successful fighter in the division. If you did your job, like Dan said, and got in around that 170, 175 area, I mean, I know some people got in at 160s too. Sure, you did a really good job, but as the line stands right now, it's going to be a little bit tough for me to get to the window, but it should be a really fun fight regardless. So I'm looking forward to this one a lot. But moving on, we have probably the most exciting fight without regarding the main event card. Trevor Peek going up against Chepe Marisco, another fighter that I have worked with in the past. Trevor Peek, love this dude, great energy, and just a genuine person. And we love to see people like that succeed after all the trials and tribulations that he's been through. But like I said, I love this from an entertainment standpoint. Peak usually comes out all hell on wheels, throwing all sorts of unorthodox strikes. The dagger punch, that's the epitome of his game plan. It's very unpredictable. And sometimes when he gets over aggressive, he does tend to take him down. But the good thing is that his get-up game is pretty damn good. Marisco, on the other hand, he's another action fighter, but he's moving up a weight class here. He's naturally a featherweight. He's faced some pretty good competition. Some people who have been in the UFC currently has some wins over him, like Sabatini, Bilal, faced really legit competition. He's going to be the smaller guy, though, in the cage. And I feel like when you move from featherweight to lightweight, I feel like that's the big difference in weight when you feel the power and the punches, and that he's going to be at a multiple inch reach and height disadvantage. I just think peak strength is going to be a little bit too much here. So give me my boy Trevor. Dan, what do you think?
Damn, Wiz, that was way longer than a minute, bro.
Yeah, it definitely was. I'm a little bit passionate because it's my boy.
So, I mean, look, Trevor Peek, very physical guy, one punch knockout power, still a little green, figuring things out. Marisco, a guy that's paid his dues on the regional scene. You mentioned how he beat Sabatini, he beat Zalal, and shout out to Marisco. I got a soft spot for him because when Ilia Topuria made his UFC debut against Zalal, I watched that fight between Zalal and Marisco and saw the success Marisco had against Zalal and thought that Ilia Topuria could do similar things on the mat. That's what he did. So shout out to Marisco. But here, I think, I think there's weight classes for a reason. I think 55 is the wrong weight class for him. So I'm going to go with Trevor Peek. Probably gets taken down a couple times, gets back up, and lands the finishing blow on Marisco.
There we go. Next up, we have Patty Zalgas Zumagulov going up against Joshua Van. Patty Pimblett Zumagulov is going to be at, well, the reach is not even listed here on Topology, but he's going to be at a 1 inch height disadvantage. And when you look at the fight, I mean, I just don't like how Zalgas fights close with almost everyone that he fights. Some people have different opinions regarding his wins and losses in the UFC. I mean, when you fight that close, it's going to be tough. He's very tough to back in this spot, even when you're facing a short notice opponent in Joshua Van. But Van is a very explosive striker, prone to being taken down at times due to overextending, similar to Trevor Peek. But he's wild and very fast striker, super athletic, and does carry some power in his hands. He's just going to have to stay away from the wrestling. So in my opinion, this is a dog or pass spot.
Agreed. I mean, Gulab 1-5 in the UFC. His fights prior to his UFC fights were all like split decisions that I thought he didn't win. And honestly, I didn't think he won those fights that everyone's crying robbery about either. So Josh Van, very talented. He's a finisher. Kind of reminds me of like a smaller like Ray Cooper type. Like he just goes for it. He's violent, kind of green. Not the most confident pick, but I'm gonna go with Josh Van as well. Just more upside with him, and I like the price tag, so I'll go with him.
Absolutely. I feel like if this was on not on short notice, I probably would have gotten to the window with Josh Van, but unfortunate. And we have the Twitter simp fight of the week. We have Tabitha Ricci going up against Jillian Robertson. And this fight is tough to cap. I'm just gonna say the height advantage is because a lot of people have been talking about this. It's 4 inches for Jillian Robertson here, and she's a 1 inch advantage. Here's the thing. As I mentioned, tough fight to cap. Both of these girls tend to look for the grappling and the wrestling, and that's how they usually either finish fights or win fights. It's super close, with Richie being the better wrestler and Robertson being the more dangerous grappler, being able to finish fights. The strike is going to be seen, so let's just put it that way. Both girls have pretty poor striking. I'm going to have to give the edge to Tabitha Ricci just because she throws a little bit more volume. Doesn't mean she lands it. She has that basic striking knowledge with the combos. I think she has enough to win a very close split decision here, Jillian Robertson. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, both black belts in jiu-jitsu, but I think Ricci has better striking. Jillian has never liked to strike historically throughout her career, and the blueprint's always been there on how to beat her. But props to her. She's got the most submissions in women's MMA history, so that's pretty cool. I just think it's going to be hard to do that against someone like Ricci, so give me Ricci as well.
Another fight where they align. I love it. Next up, we have Mateusz Rebecki going up against Loic Radzhabov. Rebecki's going to be at a 4-inch height disadvantage, and he's going to be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Dan, why don't you lead us off with this one?
Yeah, I think this is a spot I'm looking to get involved on the Rambetsky side. I think that he's being disrespected big time. Like, people are criticizing him because he beat the living shit out of Nick Fiore for 3 straight rounds instead of finishing him in 60 seconds. Like, oh my bad, he 30-25'd him, Like, so let's make him, under 200 in the spot. Look, Loic's solid, but Loic's nothing special. I mean, Loic was getting face planted his last fight. And I just think that Rambetsky is just physically superior. If let's say their skills are, their skill sets are similar, I think that the more physical guy is going to win this fight. So I think there's actually a good price on Rambetsky, and I'm picking him here.
Absolutely, yeah. I like Rambetsky in this spot a lot. Sure, I hear the concerns of Rambetsky's gas tank, given that he gassed a bit in the last fight. As mentioned, he was beating the living crap out of Nick Fiore, and he had him wobbled a couple times, multiple takedown attempts, and Fiore is just a tough son of a gun. You just got to give it to him. And a 10-8 round 2. I just like the pressure that Rambetsky brings, and I understand that Loic has had extensive experience in the PFL, challenging for the title over there, but I just think the physicality of Rambetsky is going to be the dictator of this fight. So and yeah, my issue with Loic is that he actually gasses himself too. I spoke in his last fight when I was breaking it down on the show. He tends to gas himself too. So, and that's not with him like doing overexerting or being that pressures. It's just his natural fighting style. He just tends to gas. So I might have to take Rebecki here, pretty confidently. Next up, we got Randy Brown going up against Wellington Turman. Wellington Turman is moving down a weight class here to welterweight after fighting for most of his career at middleweight. Turman is going to be 3 inches shorter than Randy Brown. He's going to have a 6-inch reach disadvantage. So the way I look at this fight, I mean, obviously you have to look at the factor of Turman moving down to 170. I think this fight's pretty binary. If it plays out on the feet, I think Randy Brown has a huge edge. He's going to be able to keep Turman at range, especially with the long reach advantage that he has. But if Turman is able to grab a hold of Randy Brown and take him to the ground, I'm not saying that Randy Brown is any slap on the mat. I believe he's a brown belt, but I think Turman is just a step ahead, and we've seen him sub guys like left, right. It's gonna be tough for Randy Brown to survive on the ground against Turman. So I'm gonna have to pass on a pure pick here. It's gonna be Randy Brown if he's gonna be able to keep it on the feet. As I mentioned, I'm a little bit more confident in his side. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough because we don't know how Turman's going to look at welterweight. I mean, he could be a real beast, or his chin could be worse. His gas tank could be worse. So, it's tough to say. But who do I think is the better fighter? Randy Brown. So, pure pick, Randy Brown.
Yeah, this one has been a little bit more tough for me to break down just because it's in my head, it's just so binary. And you just have those questions about Turman moving down after that last performance. Oh man, don't like to see that. But next up, we have Neil Magny going up against Phil Rowe. Neil Magny being both fighters actually pretty much the same measurables, except for Phil Rowe having a half-inch reach advantage here. I really like Magny in this spot. I think the strength schedule is going to be the dividing factor here. Just facing some of the top of the top of the division and putting on good performances. I mean, obviously in his last couple, not what you want to see, but I think Magny poses more of a threat in the finishing department. I don't like how Phil Rowe reacts when he gets hit. His durability has always been a question mark for me personally. And then also his defensive wrestling is not up to par to what I think Neil Magny can pose as a threat. So I think this is a big that lesson spot for Neil Magny, and it's a solid get right spot for him too. So give me Neil Magny. Dan, what do you think?
I mean, if we're going to talk about durability concerns with Rowe, Magny's the guy that's been finished 8 times. So let's.
That is true.
But I mean, listen, he has been there with the better competition. It's just stylistically speaking, none of these guys are the size of Phil Rowe. Like, this is the first time that Magny doesn't have that big reach advantage. In my opinion, even though it says they have the same reach, I think Rowe's got a longer reach, and I think Rowe's taller as well. And this is going to be a different experience for Magny, but also a different experience for Rowe as well. Just the level of competition, but just stylistically speaking, I think it's a fight that Phil Rowe can win. And I think he's gonna crack Magny with something hard. I think when he gets taken down in the early going, he's gonna be able to survive. When they get back up to the feet, I think he's gonna knock out Neil Magny.
That's definitely a possibility given the durability of Magny. It's going to be a fun fight to watch, so that's for sure. Next up, we have Brendan Allen going up against Bruno Silva. And let's see. We have 2-inch height advantage for Brendan Allen, and he's also going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. And lead us off.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a really risky fight for Brendan Allen. This is a guy that had a main event against Jack Hermanson, which I mean, you win that fight, and it's like either a title shot or one fight away from a title shot. You lose that fight. The fact that you were in a main event, now your name's in that the hat for another potential main event in the future. Whereas now you just took a fight against an unranked guy who's got 20 wins by knockout on his resume. He's dangerous. He's skilled. He's the only guy that's lost to Pereira but hasn't been finished by Pereira. Went the distance with Pereira and banged with him. Even rocked Pereira at one point. This is a dangerous fight for Brendan Allen, man. I mean, I think he should win. I think he's the more skilled guy. I just think if this guy has an off night, which he's had before against Strickland, against Curtis, if he shows up, with like a mustache and like a rat tail or something like that, then you might need to take the underdog shot on Bruno Blindado here, because this is a really risky fight.
Yeah, I don't know why he took this fight, why he even accepted it. He should have just waited it out.
Because
But
fighters
yeah,
fight.
man, sometimes they fight too much for their own good. I just feel like he could have had that spot against Hermanson, and if he won, maybe one or two more fights, and you have the title shot there, or even just like a better opportunity. I don't know, but I think Bruno is KO or bust here, as he is in most of his fights, and that is very possible. Brendan Allen is a guy that, yeah, sure, he might be better than Bruno everywhere the fight goes, whether it's in the grappling and striking. Technique-wise, I like Brendan Allen's combos a lot more than Bruno Silva's. But don't get me wrong, the concern is Brendan Allen's striking defense. He's pretty liable to get hit, and he gets hit pretty frequently and clean on the button. Like against Muniz was tagging him up. And I was surprised that he was eating the shots that he was eating, because I felt like he was about to get wobbled any second, eating the cleanest of shots from a dude who does carry some power. And when you move the lens to Bruno Silva, this guy definitely has more power than Andre Muniz, and he can put you out. So it's a stay away fight for me, but pure pick is Ellen. He has to do it with the grappling. I don't think he wants to stay on the feet with Bruno Blindado too long. Next fight, we have one of my favorites, David Onama going up against Gabriel Santos. David Onama is going to have a 2-inch height advantage, and he's going to have a 2.5-inch reach advantage. So this is probably one of my favorite spots on the card, just as a pure pick. I think Santos has Onama covered everywhere. Onama's gas tank is something that I worry about in this matchup like a lot, against a guy who's going to throw everything except the kitchen sink at you. And if it gets past the first round, you already know that Onama's going to start slowing down, and Gabriel Santos is going to start picking up the pace. We saw what Gabriel Santos did on short notice against Lerone Murphy, and I had Murphy in that match, and I don't think I should have walked away with money in my pocket there, but we all get one here and there. I just think Santos is going to be a lot faster, a lot more crisp in the boxing. And the way I think he has the least path of resistance is in the grappling. I think he can take Onama down over and over again and possibly find a submission in the second or third round. So give me Santos inside the distance, and yeah, he's my pure pick. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, y'all got to check out a fight between Gabriel Santos and Marisco Barboza. Insane fight, crazy comeback. Just shows you the kind of heart that this kid, Gabriel Santos, has. That fight he had with Lerone Murphy, very underrated fight. The fact that he went 50-50 with Lerone Murphy speaks volumes about, what level this kid's on. Onama came into the UFC. He had that dogfight with Mason Jones, who at the time was a very well-respected prospect. He had that war with Landwehr. He knocked out Gabriel Benitez. So, I mean, this is a hell of a fight. I think Santos is slightly ahead of him in the skill department, so I'm going to pick him for that reason. But at the current price, based on how I think the fight's going to go down, it's a dog or pass situation.
I respect it. Next up, if this would even respond, there we go. Next up, we have Justin Tafa going up against Austin Lane. Justin Tafa is going to be at a 6-inch height disadvantage and a 6-inch reach disadvantage. Why don't you lead the way, Dan?
The big boys. I mean, basically, these two are going to stand and bang until one man falls. Justin Tafa's got more of that old school Mark Hunt style, big left hooks, big leg kicks. In the clinch, he'll break off with big elbows. You love to see it, walk-off knockouts. Austin Lane, I think he's a former football player, big boy. Also, killer be killed. So if someone's going to hit the deck, I'm going to go with the experience and the KO power of Tafa here.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. Although being the smaller guy here in the measurables, he's a much cleaner striker, much more technical, and he has more power. I think Lane is a guy, quite frankly, is just really chain. And I like the experience that Tafa brings to the table. I do think Lane has some improvements that he can make and further his career in the UFC, because heavyweight division isn't the hardest to crack the top 10, top 15, just like 2 or 3 wins. But heavy chalk is not advised to lay on Tafa. We've seen the stunts that he pulls. So pure pick, Justin Tafa. Next up, we have the co-main event. We have Amanda Ribas going up against Macy Barber. Amanda Ribas is going to be at a 2-inch height disadvantage, and she's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage here. The main concern for me on the Ribas side is that on the feet, she's just tough to trust, because she's also someone who can get cracked, and she's been dropped multiple times in the UFC. Barber does have power, and her boxing, I mean, it's not the cleanest of things, but she can put it together. And when she's on her best day, I mean, she looks like a world beater at times, but also when she's on her worst day, yeah, it's not the most beautiful state. I think Amanda Ribas is going to have her way in the grappling if she's able to control Macy Barber on the mat. And we've seen Macy concede tons of minutes on the mat in her past couple of fights. So if Amanda Ribas is able to land these takedowns with these judo throws that she throws and is smart with that control time, I think she can cruise to a decision win against Macy Barber here. But as long as this fight is on the feet, I worry for the chin of Amanda Ribas. But pure pick, Amanda Ribas. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. Amanda Ribas, I mean, not just in the UFC, outside the UFC, Polyana Vienna knocked her out in the first round. So chin's absolutely a concern. Macy Barber, one of the rare women's fighters that has knockout power when she's actually landing, not when she's swinging at air. But to her credit, man, I mean, she won a round against the current champ, Alexa Grasso, and not only the current champ, the current pound for pound #1 women's fighter. Go look up the rankings right now. So Macy Barber won a round against her. So at these odds, it's dogger pass.
Absolutely, yeah. Whoever got the early odds on Ribas, props to you because I didn't think the lines would shift this quick. I woke up Monday morning and I'm like, what the fuck did I just miss out on? So a lot of these fights have been dogger pass or just a no bet. But last but not least, we have the main event of the evening. We have Josh Emmett going up against El Matador, Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria is going to be at a 1-inch height advantage, and he's also going to be at a 1-inch reach disadvantage here. I think Topuria likely pieces Emmett up here, and I'm not saying that Emmett lacks the technique or the ability here to fight with a guy like Topuria because he does. He has very crisp boxing and he has that one-shot knockout power that we've all seen in the past. But we're going to learn a lot about Emmett in this weigh-in because back-to-back bad weight cuts is going to be very telling about the physical state. The handicapping aspect for me that matters and is the age gap right here. It's huge. It's I believe 12 years between Ilia and Josh Emmett. Yeah, it's 12 years exactly. And I just think Emmett, if he weighs in again and looks like he's a drop skull, like in Australia, I know he had that travel that he had to make the long distance journey. But if he shows up the same way here, I think Ilya is probably going to knock him out in the first round. But either way, I do think Ilya is going to have the much more faster boxing. And he also has the grappling in his back pocket, which I think he'll probably lean on towards the second to third round. Because Josh Emmett, I mean, we've seen him turn people's lights off time and time again, and he can do it to Ilia Topuria. I know Ilya has been rocked a couple of times. He got rocked when he faced Jai Herbert, but that was up at 155, and it was a head kick. Showed good survivability and recoverability. Was able to get the takedown and ride out the round. So, in my opinion, I think Topuria inside the distance here, but that's no surprise. The line is like minus 270 for the inside the distance on Topuria. So, yeah, that's what I think about this fight. Dan.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Topuria has passed all the tests he's had in front of him, and here with Josh Emmett, he's catching Josh Emmett at the perfect time. I mean, it's every fighter's dream to be a world champion. Josh Emmett just fought for the title. It didn't go his way. He's 39 years old. I mean, once you climb the mountain, you can't like keep climbing the mountain. You got to fall down the mountain. And that's just the circle of life, man. So I think Topuria, all he's got to do is look out for the big hooks of Josh Emmett. You know, Josh Emmett, the holder of the record of the most knockdowns in UFC featherweight history. So you got to be worried about that. But besides that, I think that Topuria has got a wrestling threat as well. I think he's got a submission threat and, of course, a KO threat. So we'll go Ilia Topuria to get the biggest win of his career.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, the aspect of him getting so close to the title and losing in the way that he lost against Yair Rodriguez, that's just a tough look. And the amount of damage he absorbed is what concerns me the most. So regardless, this should be a really fun fight to watch, a really fun card to watch and to break down with my man Dan. I really appreciate it. I know it's a little bit later in your time. So again, thank you so much for hopping on. Looking forward to seeing you this weekend. Let the people know what you have going on and where they can find you.
My pleasure, man. Y'all know where to follow me. Best Fight Picks on Twitter, Half the Battle on YouTube. Friday, Technique of the Week coming out, and it's a good one. So make sure y'all stay tuned.
Absolutely. And guys, if you haven't already, please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. On the road to 400 subscribers. Let's get this done. And we will see you next week for another episode of 1 Minute Breakdowns. But until then, peace.